like a timer?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I did my Unity and Diversity talk on Hardwiring Happiness, the New Brain Science of Contentment, Calm, and Confidence by Rick Hanson. So just a little bit about the author. Rick Hanson is an author of 5 books, one of them being Hardwiring Happiness. And they're all about mindfulness, self-compassion, and positive emotions. And he's a psychologist, and he has a master's in developmental psychology, and he earned his PhD in clinical psychology, and he owns his own practice. He's the founder of the Wellsprings Institute for Neuroscience, Contemplative Wisdom, and he provides training resources for teaching and learning about inner strengths and mindfulness. He has like his own website where he has a lot of different resources, and he has a YouTube channel also. So just a little bit about his theory in his book that he's talking about. It's called Taking in the Good. And for the majority of the beginning of the book, he's explaining something called the negativity bias. And this is pretty much just explaining how our brains are hardwired to hold on to negative experiences and not hold on to positive experiences. So he uses an example and says that the negative experiences are like Velcro and the positive ones are like Teflon, they don't stick. So once negative experiences happen, we immediately begin to store them in our memories, and we don't do that as much with positive experiences. And once they begin to be stored in our memory, they begin to affect our mental well-being. So they can cause feelings of stress, anxiety, and loneliness. So his theory for combating this negativity bias is called Taking in the Good. And he explains this as deliberate internalization of positive experiences. So when a positive experience happens, he suggests that you focus on it and you internalize it. Because if you don't focus on it, your brain's not going to store it like it does with your negative experiences. So what Taking in the Good does is it builds inner strengths, and he explains inner strengths to be very positive and necessary traits in your brain, and you need inner strengths because they impact your well-being, your ability to cope, and your everyday effectiveness. Okay, so moving on from just taking in the good, he gives you 4 steps to how you should take in the good, and he uses the word HEAL, H-E-A-L, as his 4 steps, and it stands for have a positive experience, enrich it, absorb it, and link it to positive and negative material. So we can look at that a little more in depth with this chart. So have a positive experience is making sure that you take notice of your positive experience, and it can be present in the foreground or the background of your awareness. So it could be something super simple, like having a nice interaction with the person who's checking you out at the grocery store, or just having a cup of coffee, anything that makes you happy. And the next step is enrich it, which you would do by sticking with it for at least 10 seconds and enjoying it and letting the experience fill your body and just make you happy, instead of just moving through it so quickly like you normally would. And then step 3 is absorb it. So this step is important because it's a very intentional step. You have to let the experience sink in, and it sounds kind of weird, but let it become a part of you, and let it become a part of your brain so that it's stored into your memories. And then the 4th step, he explains it as optional, and it's not necessary to achieve happiness and taking in the good, but he said it is very beneficial. And it's linking a positive experience with another positive experience or a negative experience, like a hurt or a wounded part of yourself, because your brain stores all of the negative experiences and not the positive ones. If you start connecting some of these little positive experiences with negative ones stored in your brain, it can kind of start rewiring the negative thoughts in your brain. So, hardwiring happiness in the social studies classroom. So I just looked up a few of the standards to where I could integrate this theory into my classroom, and I think that it would be good to teach students about the 4 steps because I think that they're important to know, especially for students because they're, teenagers and they can feel very overwhelmed in school. They can feel really unmotivated and stressed. A lot of times they can feel anxious, and it makes them not do well in school. It makes them not want to focus in school. So I think teaching them about this process, or at least integrating it into the curriculum somehow, would help them be a little bit more motivated and focus on school in a positive way instead of a negative way. So you could, for social studies, you could use it in psychology, and I found the standard that says understanding the impact of various environmental factors on the development of the human mind, analyze the internal influences on human development, identify the impact of external influences on human development. And then for sociology, you could even kind of tie it in there. It says understanding major social problems, describe major social problems and their effects on the social structures, analyze causes and effects of social problems. So you could kind of tie it in there when you're talking about social problems like depression and like mental health. You could talk about how our brains have this negativity bias, and that could be a major cause of those mental health disorders. Mm-hmm. So these are just some positive classroom environment like characteristics that I think are really important, and I think that using this theory would really help you achieve these in your classroom. Mm-hmm. So students need to know that they're valued and respected regardless of other factors such as ability, gender, race, ethnicity, or religion. Mm-hmm. Teacher needs to get to know all of the students and use that knowledge to create meaningful experiences. And all students are challenged to achieve high expectations, and all students receive the support necessary to meet those expectations. So all of those characteristics for a positive classroom environment are really based off of making sure that the students feel like they're in a safe environment and they're all very revolved on making it a positive learning experience for them. So teaching the 4-step HEAL process in the classroom, Hansen talks about this towards the end of the book. He talks about how you can use these 4 steps when you're working with children and how he's done it with his work. And he says that there are a lot of different ways to introduce the HEAL steps to kids, and you can do it in a way where you just focus on positive experiences in the classroom. You don't necessarily have to describe all of the steps to them. It just is this small change of you focusing more on positive experiences, and you can create positive experiences for them. So instead of it just being this experience that they view as negative or unmotivating, if you create a positive experience and you bring attention to it, like to the whole class, that can be very effective. And it will create situations where students can take in the good. And you can kind of be their guide to like help them take in the good without having to explain all the steps. And then another way to use it, and this usually works best for older kids, so middle school, high school age, you can just introduce the 4 steps of HEAL to them and give them examples. So you could just tell them, what each step means and how you can achieve each step to take in the good and focus on a positive way of learning and just to be happier in your everyday life. And then this one is mainly for high school students, but you can encourage them to start using the HEAL steps by themselves. So you've kind of guided them, teaching them about it, giving them examples, and now they should be able to start making small steps to using it on their own, even if it's, small little positive thoughts that is going to help them be able to use it every day. And the more that you do taking in the good, the more your inner strengths will develop. So this is going to help them learn to take in the good in their everyday experiences, which will help with their overall effectiveness in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Okay, and then I wanted to talk about mental health statistics, because especially for high school, mental health is a big thing, and a lot of times students don't have that positive experience, and they don't know how to focus on positive things because their brain's hardwired to focus on negative things. So just a couple of statistics. Many mental health disorders first develop in adolescence. So if they have a mental health disorder at some point in their life, it usually develops when they're in their adolescence. Approximately 20% of adolescents have a diagnosable mental health disorder. So if you think about it, that's like if you have a classroom of 25 people, that's like 5 kids in your classroom that could possibly have a mental health disorder. And an estimated 3.1 million adolescents aged 12 to 17 in the United States have had at least one major depressive episode. And it represented 12.8% of the United States population aged 12 to 17. And 21% of low-income students and youth aged 6 to 17 have mental health disorders. And then in Mississippi, about 26,000 adolescents aged 12 to 17 per year in 2013 and 14 had at least one major depressive episode. So you can see, mental health is a big concern in schools, and it's the teacher's job to make sure that they have some positive influences in the classroom, not just with having a positive learning experience, but having the ability to help them know how to focus on the positive things instead of just the negative, because their brains are still developing and they can't see the positive outweighing the negative at that point in their lives. So the benefits of taking in the good, I think that incorporating the 4 steps of HEAL in the classroom will help meet the needs of all students by creating a positive learning environment for everyone. So whether or not the kid that you're teaching it to, it has a mental health struggle or not, I think it would be beneficial to everyone in the classroom, because all kids in high school, I know for me, you get very overwhelmed with emotions in high school, and I think that teaching them how to take in the good is a positive thing, because it's going to teach them how to not focus on the negative, and it's going to create a positive learning environment. And I think Hardwiring Happiness provides a step-by-step plan that will help students outweigh their negative thoughts with positive ones. And students who feel stressed, unmotivated, anxious, depressed will find that focusing on the positive emotions and experiences will help increase their overall effectiveness and well-being.